main event that we've been wanting for a long time, and since the debut in August, we were itching that this was the feud, and we finally saw it tonight. CM Punk versus MJF, and as soon as MJF's hits, I was like, music hit, I was like, wow, they're gonna get 45 minutes for this. 45 minutes for the main event, and that's what I like, how AEW doesn't rush certain things, and especially a payoff like this. I mean, MJF versus CM Punk is, as we talked about, could and should main event any pay-per-view period in pro wrestling, and they got a lot of time that they deserved and wanted, and it was one of the better storytelling matches that I've seen in a while. The back and forth, the working on the body parts, and this wasn't just a match, man. It was an absolute battle. It was a war between these guys, and it's hard to say this is over by the way it finished.
It's not over. There's no way it's over. And if you didn't see the finish, Wardlow, we were kind of, Wardlow comes out, man, and we didn't know what to expect. We didn't know if Wardlow was gonna, kind of wash his hands of MJF or not, and he didn't. He stuck with his guy, and it was pretty surprising. You could tell he kind of felt
very surprising,
felt bad about it, man. But overall, dude, what can you say about these two, man? Like I tweeted out during the show, MJF is so underappreciated in the ring, in ring stuff. He's as good as anybody there is, and he's so thoughtful in his ring psychology.
You're right.
And he gets just talked about as this promo guy, right? And his promos are the best, but he's just as good in the ring, and he's just as talented in that aspect of being a professional wrestler. And when you have him go against somebody like CM Punk, who is one of the best, there has ever been on this planet in this industry, you get to have just magic like we saw tonight. This was constant, like back and forth, like they sold Punk's knee and his arm, and MJF was just, hurting his back at points, and like, oh man, it was so good. And then the end, when Wardlow comes out and he throws the ring to MJF basically and ends the match.
I mean,
we were like predicting bittersweet because we thought Wardlow was going to turn.
Yeah, and now it's, to me, other than this match being a fantastic match, and like I said, the storytelling was incredible. I think there were so many different elements of this, like so unique. Like we saw early in the match where the MJF beat CM Punk by choking him out, but then the ref called him out on cheating, restarted the match, and then beat him again at the end of the match by cheating again. So he was
2-0 against Punk.
That's true. If you 2-0 against Punk, but both were cheating matches. So you're going to have a no DQ kind of match as well. That way, but looking at all that match aside, which was so many great high spots, the stamina of both guys, and the storytelling. A couple of my favorite parts of the match, that though early on, was that rope teeter slapping where like MJF kept slinging back and he was punching him. Like that was so funny. And then you could see CM Punk cracking up. Like I haven't seen that before, and it was so funny. He would come up, punch him, and they would like teeter totter back and forth.
Part of me wonders if that was planned or it was just like it turned out like that, and they're like, "All right, let's roll with this. This is funny."
I don't know. CM Punk looked like he was laughing at that. So either way, it was great. I thought it was a lot of great, man.
What'd you think about Kip Sabian being involved all night?
I noticed that. Like when CM Punk almost went over the barricade, Kip was right there, front row,
just watching. And then MJF was like hanging over the barricade, and Kip's just like,
I know. Right. His gimmick where he's got that cardboard box over his head, and so all in all, I mean, we were predicting like a possible Wardlow coming out at trying to help MJF, and then MJF, slapping Wardlow or Wardlow not helping him. But we saw it totally different. We saw Wardlow help MJF, go face to face with CM Punk, and so helping out his client, MJF. But now that push and that Wardlow crowd pop, like now I feel like we're taking a small step back, but like what happens from there? What do you think?
Well, we've talked about this a couple times, man, where sometimes it feels like AEW is so close to pulling the trigger on something, and then
Yeah.
they don't, and then you're like, okay, like why not? And tonight felt like one of those nights where it's like this might have been the night to pull that trigger on Wardlow, and I hope it's not a missed opportunity because I think that this match was fantastic, and even the ending was just like fantastic and good. Everything worked, but
MJF.
sometimes if a guy is that over and he's getting that kind of reaction, um, you have to just go with it. And it's like, man, like how much else? Like, how is it going to feel any better than it already feels, right? Like we had all these squash matches. We've had him have that 2-on-1 squash in Cleveland, his
Mhm.
hometown in front of his home crowd. Um, it feels like it's already at that point where it needs to kind of be pushed over the edge, and it's like teetering right there, but then it kind of fell back a little bit and you're like, okay, like why? Maybe it's being saved for pay-per-view for the rematch of this, but for me it's like you can save it only for so long, if you keep
Yeah.
doing this or you keep teasing it, eventually people are going to be like, all right, like I'm over it, and I'm not. I think it's great storytelling, and I think it's going to be long term and good. And ultimately, it's going to make us appreciate Wardlow's turn even more. But I do think that there's something to be said about you know not not being too conservative with
Mhm.
some of this stuff. Sometimes you have to just go all in, and
Sure.
I think that Wardlow's that kind of talent where you go all in on him and you just kind of see where it goes. And ultimately, like I could be completely wrong, and he could turn next week, and everything's fine. But you know, I've seen enough to where I want to see that turn happen. And I'm convinced after tonight that it's going to be at when's Revolution? It's got to be coming up
March
March.
4th
Uh,
or
yeah,
the first weekend of March.
so I'm convinced it's going to happen at Revolution now because
So a month away.
they're going to
March
probably have a
5th.
rematch. Punk and MJF are probably going to have a rematch at Revolution. Like you said, no DQ,
That'll
and
be
that's
great.
probably when Wardlow's going to turn. Because
Yeah.
no DQ, he can do whatever he wants.
Yeah, and I think then I guess you can lean into like MJF wanting the ring, wanting the chairman, wanting all this, and then Wardlow, stop grabbing the chair last second or something along the lines. And earlier in the pay per view, Wardlow wins the Face of Revolution or something along the
Yeah,
lines.
something
It's
like
like
that.
the ultimate payoff. But I mean, MJF just beat CM Punk in Chicago. That alone, I mean, they're giving him that notch,
All
that
in, man.
accolade for MJF, and
How long is it going to be till he wins the belt, the title?
I don't know, man.
Got to be
He
coming.
needs some gold for sure. He's deserving it, but he's so good on it. With that's the thing. Like the belt can make the champion, or the champion can make the belt, and I don't even think MJF needs either to make himself so relevant and so top tier. He's
Yeah,
not a mid guy.
no.
He is a top tier guy. But the fact that, like, yes, we want Warlow to turn. We want him to turn ASAP. We want him to turn weeks ago. But the time wasn't right. The fact that MJF beat CM Punk in Chicago, that is the story. That is the headline. That should be across everything.
Do you
And
think that
so,
MJF's going to play on the fact that Wardlow didn't beat CM Punk, even though he basically did beat CM Punk?
oh,
Um,
I'm sure it'll come into play eventually.
yeah, because that would be interesting if he starts like kind of trolling him a little bit, like, "Hey, man, look at I don't need to pay you any money. I can do it myself."
Yeah,
Like
no, I think you're right. I think it could definitely happen.
that'd be cool
Um,
stuff, man. But overall, dude, like this match was just top notch, and I think that we're kind of at that point where it's like, how can you not say MJF was the performer of the night, right?
you're right, and I have to give as the resident babyface, I have to give credit
Because
where credit is
kills you.
due. How can you not give the top performer of the night to someone who beats CM Punk, the best in the world, undefeated in AEW, in his hometown? Regardless if you cheat, it's just about being smarter. And so, MJF is our top performer of the night. Congratulations to him. As much as we hate to say it, he beat CM Punk. He's got a win over CM Punk, his childhood hero, and it was besides the ending, it was a great match overall.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was, and the ending wasn't bad at all. I think the ending was interesting. I just was a little confused, but especially after the last couple of weeks. But I think overall, man, like these guys are leagues ahead of some of the other stuff we saw
Mhm.
tonight. Like this felt like a pay-per-view match. And a lot of times we talk about like the main event of Dynamite feeling like a big match and stuff, but
Right.
this one felt like the headliner to a pay-per-view. Um,
As it should be.
and it was treated like that. It was a special moment, and
I
it
don't
felt
think they
like the
would have
whole
got
show
45
kind of was
minutes on a
leading up to it.
pay-per-view.
Pardon? What was that?
I don't think they would have got 45 minutes on a pay-per-view,
Probably
honestly.
not. Probably not. And that's why I love that, Tony just says, "Hey man, like we'll give Danielson and Hangman an hour." You know what I mean? Like that's
We'll give
cool.
it to them again if they want it.
And then we'll give it to him
Yeah.
again, and they'll go past TV time. There's no TV time remaining. You know what I mean?
I'm waiting
We'll
for
give
them to do it. They've said that time and time again. We're going to stay
and
with
they
this match as long as possible. I know it's going to cost money, but I think that would be cool to experiment with that. Like, give
yeah.
us a match that goes 5 minutes over, 10 minutes over, where we're just like on the edge of our seat. Like, I think that would have been the perfect timing for the Hangman Adam Page match. One of those